enough from you.
Hi guys, my name is Moxxi. I'm going to teach you my top 10 tips at how to survive in Borderlands 2. First and foremost, this will apply to every Vault Hunter in Borderlands 2. And with that out the way, let's get into the video. Starting off with number 10, don't down yourself. Simple as this one seems guys, it's actually more common than you would think, because many weapons in Borderlands 2 have explosive properties. These guns include rocket launchers and grenadier type assault rifles such as the peak opener. The best way to avoid this mishap is to understand your weaponry and distance to an enemy. That concludes number 10, now moving on to number 9 guys. Kill the enemy before the enemy kills you. This one's self-explanatory guys, you want to burst down enemies as quick as possible. In doing so, this nullifies the enemy's ability to put damage on you. And that concludes tip number 9, now moving on to tip number 8. Destroy the barrels guys. Any long-term Borderlands 2 player will tell you just how annoying these barrels really are. If an enemy blows this barrel up while you're stood next to it, you will see God. Or a new U-station rather. So before you get into any scenario, please guys, just destroy the barrels. That'll do it for number 8 guys. Time to move on to number 7. This next tip is all about learning how to read the minimap. Now this is a basic skill guys, but an essential one. The minimap essentially feeds us information that we as a player can take advantage of. The information is as follows. It tells us how many enemies there are and where the enemies are. And the best tip I can give is to ensure all the enemies are in your line of sight. Now sometimes surveyors may get away from you, but generally this is the rule you want to follow guys. This basically ensures you won't end up getting surrounded and overwhelmed by the enemies. Just before we move on guys, if you're enjoying the video or you've learned something new, please consider subscribing and dropping a like on the video. Moving swiftly on now guys to tip number 6. Killing priority enemies. Now you might be asking yourself why an ironclad lunatic would be a priority enemy. The answer to that question is it varies case by case. In this case on my Maya build, I'm running a sham shield which absorbs bullets, and I'm running kinetic reflection which deflects bullets. Hence why I wanted to kill the ironclad lunatic, because he is a melee type enemy, which renders the sham and kinetic reflection completely useless. To give you another example though, enemies with elemental weapons are very dangerous and should be killed as soon as possible. That's because damage over time damage can shred through your shield and your health bar. That'll be all for tip number 6, now moving on to tip number 5. Speccing the correct skills guys. Now those were just 4 examples of Maya's defensive skills, but each character has their own unique defensive skills. If you're really not sure what skills to spec guys, I would recommend looking up reputable YouTubers such as JoltsDude139 and Garnet Anarchist and using their suggested builds. Although if you would like a build from myself, let me know in the comments and I'll make that happen. That'll do it for tip number 5 guys, moving on to tip number 4, which is selecting the right shield guys. In Borderlands 2 not all shields are made equally, but they are made different though. So we're going to look at these 3 examples now of all different types of shields and see what they do. Starting off with the infamous B shield. Now you might be asking yourself, why is this shield infamous? Well, we're going to get into that now. This shield is known for boosting weapon damage on guns, especially that of guns with unlisted projectiles, such as the Unkempt Herald and the Lyuda. That then begs the question, what is an unlisted projectile? An unlisted projectile is a projectile that doesn't show on the item card. So let's look at the Unkempt Herald as an example. As we can see, it only lists 2 projectiles on the card. However, it is actually shooting 14 projectiles guys, because of those unlisted projectiles that we were talking about. So what's the main downside to this shield? It's the survivability guys. This shield should basically never be used during mobbing because it's completely unnecessary guys. Reason being, all the Vault Hunters are capable of dealing enough damage to deal with the mobs without the use of the B shield. If you did use a B shield, you'd be leaving survivability on the table guys. Which brings me on to my next shield, and the shield I would actually recommend, and that shield is known as a blockade. The reason I recommend this shield is because it gives you 52.5% damage reduction at all times. The one downside to the blockade shield though guys is how you obtain it, and that's by defeating the ancient dragons of destruction. But don't worry guys, there are a few glitches that can get around that problem. This brings me on to my final shield, the sham shield. The Sham Shield's unique effect is that it can absorb bullets and put the bullets straight into your reserves. This helps survivability because the Sham absorbs the bullets. That means those bullets do no damage to us guys. However, the downside to the Sham is that it's got a really low capacity and it's vulnerable to melee attackers. And with that, let's move on to tip number 3 guys. Using Moxxi weapons.
Enough from you.
Now for this segment guys, we're specifically going to talk about the Grog Nozzle. This is because the Grog Nozzle boasts the highest percentage lifesteal out of all the Moxxi weapons, at staggering 65% of damage dealt. This can get you out of many sticky situations, going from a health gated life bar to a full one. One trick all the Vault Hunters can do though is shoot a gun with slow moving projectiles and then switch to the Grog Nozzle to get its healing effect. That'll be it for tip number 3. Now moving on to tip number 2. Playing around your action skills cooldown. As you can see guys, action skills are really important with dealing with enemies. In Axton's case, he can use his turrets to draw aggro. Zero for example can use deception to distract enemies and get into a more favourable position. Which brings me to my most important tip, number 1. Positioning. The reason I believe positioning is the most important component of survival in Borderlands 2 is because with good positioning you have the ability to block all damage except maybe in the Veracidus fight. Making sure you have good positioning also means that you won't be getting surrounded by enemies, which is the last thing you want in Borderlands 2. Right guys, that'll conclude it for the video. Thanks to everyone for watching, and if you'd like more content like this, make sure you like, subscribe and comment, and I hope to see you in the next one. Enjoy the rest of the gameplay. Peace out.